The warning lights on Commander Marcus Vale's control panel blinked red in the darkness of space. Deep Space Monitoring Station Helix 7 floated silently at the edge of human territory, watching and listening for signals from the unknown regions. Beyond, Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the time display. 3 in the morning, ship time. He had been on duty for 12 hours straight, but something kept him awake. The sensors had been picking up strange readings from the Andorian cluster for the past week. Commander Vale to the bridge, his communication device crackled to life. It was Lieutenant Torres from the night shift. "What is it, Torres?" Marcus asked, already moving toward the elevator. "Sir, we're getting something big on the long-range array. You need to see this." Marcus hurried to the main control room. The massive display screen showed waves of energy patterns dancing across the star map. Lieutenant Torres pointed at a specific section of the screen. "Started about 10 minutes ago, sir. The signal is coming from deep in the Andorian cluster, about 400 light-years from here." Marcus studied the patterns. In his 15 years of monitoring deep space, he had never seen anything like this. The signal was clearly artificial, but it was unlike any human technology he knew. "Have you tried to decode it?" he asked. "We ran it through the basic translation programs, but got nothing. The pattern is too complex. I think we need to call Dr. Rodriguez." Marcus nodded. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was the best xenolinguist in the Terran Defense Coalition. If anyone could make sense of the signal, it was her. 20 minutes later, Dr. Rodriguez arrived at the station. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. She had spent most of her career studying theoretical alien languages, waiting for the day when humanity would make first contact. "Show me what you have," she said, settling down in front of the main computer terminal. Marcus played back the recording. Of the signal, Dr. Rodriguez listened carefully, her fingers dancing over the keyboard as she ran the data through various analysis programs. "This is definitely a communication signal," she said after a few minutes. "The mathematical structure is too organized to be natural, but the language is completely unknown." She worked for 3 hours trying different approaches to decode the message. Marcus brought her coffee and watched as she filled screen after screen with complex equations and linguistic patterns. "Wait," she said suddenly, leaning forward. "I think I found something. Look at this sequence here." She pointed to a section of the display. "These patterns repeat every few minutes. It's like they're emphasizing certain parts of the message." Marcus looked at the screen. Even to his untrained eye, he could see the repeating patterns Dr. Rodriguez had found. "Can you translate it?" he asked. "Not yet, but I think I understand the basic structure. Give me another hour." Marcus left her to work and went to his office to file a report with Terran Fleet Command. Admiral Jackson Brooks would want to know about this immediately. The communication line to Earth took several minutes to connect due to the distance. When Admiral Brooks appeared on the screen, he looked concerned. "Commander Vale, I got your preliminary report. What's the current status?" "Dr. Rodriguez is still working on the translation, Admiral. But we're certain this is an artificial signal. From an unknown source?" Admiral Brooks was quiet for a moment. "Commander, I want you to understand something. For the past 6 months, we've been getting reports of strange activities in the outer systems. Ships disappearing, colonies going silent. We thought it might be pirates or equipment failures, but now I'm not so sure." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Do you think the signal is connected to those incidents, sir?" "I don't know, but I want you to treat this as a priority situation. If Dr. Rodriguez can decode that message, I need to know immediately." The connection ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He walked back to the control room where Dr. Rodriguez was still working. Her eyes were red from staring at the screen, but she looked excited. "Commander, I think I've got it," she said. "The signal is definitely a distress call. The language is unlike anything in our databases, but the mathematical concepts are universal. They're using prime numbers and geometric sequences to create a basic translation matrix." "What does the message say?" Marcus asked. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up her translation on the main screen. The words appeared slowly as she read them aloud. "Any who receive this message, we are the Kithara of the Andorian systems. Our worlds are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. They call themselves the Devourers, and they consume entire planets. We have heard legends of the Deathworld species, the ones who fight like demons and fear nothing. If you are the humans from the third planet of Sol, please help us. We offer everything we have in exchange for your aid. Our last world falls soon. This may be our final transmission. The control room fell silent. Marcus stared at the message, trying to process what he had just heard. Deathworld species? He asked. Dr. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's what they call us. Apparently, word of humanity has spread through the galaxy, even though we've never made direct contact with these aliens. They think of us as warriors from a planet so dangerous that it created the ultimate fighters. Marcus activated his communication device. Get me Admiral Brooks immediately. Priority 1. While they waited for the connection, Dr. Rodriguez continued analyzing the signal. Commander, there's more data buried in this transmission. Technical specifications, star charts, even what looks like combat footage. She brought up a series of images on the screen. Marcus gasped at what he saw. Massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, were attacking a beautiful blue-green world. The alien ships fired beams of energy that carved huge sections out of the planet's surface. My God, Marcus whispered. They're strip-mining entire worlds. Admiral Brooks appeared on the communication screen again. His face was grim when Marcus explained what they had discovered. Admiral, these Cathara are asking for our help, Marcus said. They're facing complete extinction. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment. Commander, I'm going to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. In your opinion, is this message genuine? Marcus looked at Dr. Rodriguez, who nodded firmly. Yes, sir. I believe it is. The mathematical complexity alone would be impossible. Too fake. And the technical data matches the energy signatures we've been detecting. Very well, Dr. Rodriguez. How long ago was this message sent? Dr. Rodriguez checked her calculations. Based on the signal degradation in distance, approximately 6 days ago, Admiral. Admiral Brooks closed his eyes. That means we may already be too late for most of their worlds. But there might still be time to help their last colony. He opened his eyes and looked directly at Marcus. Commander, I'm authorizing you to continue monitoring for any additional signals from the Cathara. Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to compile everything you can about these Devourers and the Cathara civilization. I have some decisions to make. The communication ended, leaving Marcus and Dr. Rodriguez alone with the weight of what they had discovered. Somewhere, in the darkness of space, an entire civilization was crying out for help. And they had chosen humanity as their last hope. Marcus looked out through the station's observation window at the stars beyond. For years, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't. Their first contact with alien life was a desperate plea for survival. Dr. Rodriguez was still working at her station, pulling more data from the alien transmission. Commander, she said quietly, there's something else. The Cathara mentioned that the Devourers have been active for thousands of years. They've destroyed hundreds of civilizations. Marcus turned back to her. Are you saying this enemy has been systematically wiping out intelligent life across the galaxy? That's exactly what I'm saying. And according to this data, we might be next. The two humans stood in the silence of their small station, surrounded by the vast emptiness of space, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, an ancient evil was moving toward them. But they also knew that humanity had never backed down from a fight, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The call for help had been answered. Now they had to decide what humanity would do about it. Admiral Jackson Brooks stood in the war room at Terran Fleet Command, staring at the massive holographic display that showed the position of every human ship in known space. Red dots marked the locations of 12 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, 45 destroyers, and hundreds of smaller vessels scattered across 50 star systems. How long? He asked Captain Diana Hart, who was studying the fleet positions on her tablet. 18 hours to recall all ships to Rally Point Delta, sir. Another 6 hours for final preparations and fleet formation, Captain Hart replied. She was the commander of the dreadnought Earthshaker, humanity's most powerful warship. Admiral Brooks nodded grimly. 24 hours to assemble the largest battle fleet in human history? it would have to be enough. Send the recall order to all ships. Priority Alpha. Tell them to drop whatever they're doing and get to Rally Point Delta immediately. Captain Hart began transmitting orders, while Admiral Brooks walked to the tactical display. The Andorian cluster was 400 light-years away. Even with the fastest hyperspace drives, it would take the fleet 3 days to reach the Cthulhu. Last world. Sir, called Lieutenant Maya Okafor from her station. She was the youngest tactical officer ever assigned to fleet command, but her mind worked like a computer when it came to space combat. I've been analyzing the data from the Cathara transmission. These Devourer ships are massive, but they might have weaknesses. Admiral Brooks walked over to her station. Show me what you found. Lieutenant Okafor brought up images from the alien message on her screen. The Devourer ships looked like mechanical nightmares, covered in arms and drilling equipment. Look at their design, sir. They're built for mining and resource collection, not space combat. Their weapons seem to be modified mining tools. Rely on size and numbers, but they might not be prepared for real military tactics. Interesting, Admiral Brooks said. What about their fleet movements? That's the strange part, sir. They move in straight lines, almost like they're following predetermined patterns. No evasive maneuvers, no tactical formations. It's like they're machines following simple programming. Admiral Brooks studied the tactical data. Lieutenant Okafor might be right. If the Devourers were some kind of automated mining fleet, they might not understand real warfare. 6 hours later. Ships began arriving at Rally Point Delta, an empty region of space near the edge of human territory. Captain Hart watched from the bridge of the Earthshaker as vessel after vessel dropped out of hyperspace. Dreadnought Titan arriving, Captain reported. Her communications officer acknowledged. Have them take position in Formation Group Alpha. More ships continued to arrive. The heavy cruiser Hammer, the destroyer squadrons Wolfpack and Steel Rain, and 3 massive carrier vessels loaded with fighter craft and marine assault teams. Colonel Rex Torino stood in the main hangar of the carrier ship Anvil, watching his Marines prepare their equipment. The 5th Marine Assault Division was the best of the best, trained for combat in any environment. Listen up, Marines, Colonel Torino called out. His voice echoed through the hangar. We're about to face an enemy we've never seen before. These aren't pirates or rebels. These are aliens with technology we don't understand. The Marines gathered around him. Some looked nervous, but most appeared eager for action. It trained for years, but few had seen real combat. The enemy calls themselves Devourers, Colonel Torino continued. They destroy entire planets and everyone on them. But here's what they don't know about humans. We don't give up, we don't surrender, and we sure as hell don't let bullies pick on people who can't fight back. The Marines cheered, their voices filling the hangar. Colonel Torino smiled grimly. These soldiers would follow him into any battle, no matter how dangerous. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Bruno Santos was in the weapons bay of the Earthshaker, making final adjustments to the ship's main guns. He was a stocky man with grease-stained hands who knew every bolt and wire in the ship's systems. Chief, how are we looking? Asked Captain Hart over the intercom. All weapon systems are green, Captain. I've boosted power to the main cannons. By 15%, we're ready to give these Devourers a real fight. Bruno wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the massive plasma cannons that lined the ship's hull. Each one could punch a hole through a small asteroid. He hoped it would be enough against the alien ships. Back on the bridge, Captain Hart received a message from Admiral Brooks. The entire fleet had assembled, and it was an impressive sight. 12 dreadnoughts formed the center of the formation, their hulls bristling with weapons. The cruisers and destroyers spread out in protective formations around them. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks, came the announcement over the fleet. Communication system. In 6 hours, we will make the longest hyperspace jump in human military history. Our destination is the Cathara system, where we will face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations for thousands of years. The Admiral's voice was calm, but determined. I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest fight humanity has ever faced. The enemy outnumbers us, and their ships are larger than anything we've ever built. But they made one mistake. They picked a fight with humans. On the carrier Anvil, the Marine pilots were getting their final briefings. Wing Commander Alex Chen stood before a group of 50 fighter pilots, pointing to tactical displays showing the Devourer ship designs. Their ships are big and slow, he explained. Our fighters are small and fast. We'll use hit-and-run tactics, strike their weak points, and get out before they can target us. One of the younger pilots raised his hand. Commander, what if their point defense systems are better than we think? Wing Commander Chen smiled coldly. Then we'll find out how good human pilots really are. Remember speed and aggression are? Our advantages? Use them. As the final preparations continued, Dr. Rodriguez was aboard the command ship, analyzing more data from the Cathara transmission. She had discovered additional information buried in the alien message. Admiral, she called Brooks over the intercom. I found something important. The Cathara had been monitoring the Devourers for months. According to their data, the enemy ships have a weakness. Admiral Brooks hurried to her station. What kind of weakness? Their mining arms, Dr. Rodriguez explained, pointing to the technical diagrams. When they're extended for harvesting operations, the ships become vulnerable. The arms contain their main power conduits. If we could target them at the right moment, we could cripple their ships, Admiral Brooks finished. Excellent work, Doctor. Get this information to all ship commanders immediately. The hours passed quickly as the fleet made final preparations. Weapons were loaded, fighters were fueled, and Marines checked their equipment one last time. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled was ready for battle. Lieutenant Okafor ran final calculations on her tactical computer. Admiral, hyperspace coordinates are locked in. All ships report, ready for jump. Admiral Brooks took a deep breath and looked out at the fleet formation through the bridge windows. Humanity had come a long way from their small blue planet. Now they were about to find out if they could stand against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump, he announced. When we reach the Cathara system, we're going to show these Devourers what happens when you threaten innocent people. Humanity doesn't abandon those who call for help. The fleet began to glow as hyperspace drives powered up. In moments, they would leap across 400 light-years of space to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Colonel Torino gathered his Marines for one final speech. Remember, Marines, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that the Devourers have destroyed and every species they plan to destroy in the future. Today, humanity makes its mark on the galaxy. The hyperspace drives reached full power, and reality began to bend around. The human fleet. In a flash of light, they vanished from Rally Point Delta, racing through the darkness toward their destiny. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system, and what they saw made even veteran officers gasp in horror. 3 planets hung in space like broken toys, their surfaces carved into geometric patterns. Where once there had been blue oceans and green continents, now only gray metal and deep mining scars remained. Dear God, whispered Captain Diana Hart as she stared at the tactical display on the Earthshaker's bridge. They stripped the planets bare. Admiral Brooks stood silently beside her, watching the dead worlds spin slowly around their star. In his 30 years of military service, he had seen battlefields and destroyed cities, but never anything like this. How long would it take to do this to a planet? Asked Lieutenant OKFOR. She ran quick calculations on her computer. Based on the surface damage patterns, sir, I estimate each planet was completely harvested in less than a week. A chill ran through the bridge crew. An entire world destroyed in days. Sir, we're getting signals from the inner system, reported the communications officer. Multiple contacts around the 4th planet. Captain Derek Stone was already preparing his scout ship Lightning for a reconnaissance mission. He was a thin man with sharp eyes who had spent years exploring unknown regions of space. Captain Stone, take your ship in for a closer look, Admiral Brooks ordered. But stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. Lightning broke away from the main fleet and headed deeper into the system. As it approached the 4th planet, Stone could see why it was the last to survive. The world was protected by a massive defense grid of orbital stations and minefields. This is Captain Stone, 2 Fleet Command, he transmitted. I'm seeing the surviving Cathara world. It's heavily defended, but the defenses look damaged. There are also alien ships in orbit, and they're nothing like our designs. On his screen, Stone could see dozens of elegant vessels surrounding the planet. The ships were smooth and organic-looking, like they had been grown rather than built. But many showed signs of battle damage. I'm detecting energy signatures from the alien ships, Stone continued. They're trying to communicate with us. Ambassador General Lisa Park was aboard the command ship, and she had been preparing for this moment. She was humanity's leading expert in first contact procedures, though she had never expected to use her skills in a war zone. "Put me through to them, Captain Stone," she said. The communication channel crackled with static. Then a voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "Unknown vessels, this is Defense Commander Kelter of the Kithara Fleet. Are you the humans from the third world of Sol?" Ambassador Park took a deep breath. This was humanity's first real conversation with an alien species. "This is Ambassador General Lisa Park of the Terran Defense Coalition. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause, then Kelter's voice returned, filled with what sounded like disbelief. "You came. The Deathworld warriors actually came to help us." Defense Commander Kelter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Harmony of Stars. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. Like all Cathara, he preferred peaceful solutions to conflict, but the Devourers had given his people no choice. "Commander," said his science officer Nixera, "the human ships are unlike anything in our databases. Look at their design." Kelter studied the tactical display showing the human fleet. Where Cathara ships were smooth and curved, the human vessels were angular and aggressive. They bristled with weapons and armor plating. "How many ships do they have?" he asked. 97 vessels, Commander. Smaller than our estimates suggested, but their energy signatures are impressive. Kelter felt a mix of hope and worry. The humans had come to help, but their fleet seemed tiny compared to what was approaching. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "long-range scanners are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. The Devourers are coming." On the Lightning, Captain Stone was getting his first close look at a Kithara. Defense Commander Kelter had agreed to meet face-to-face, and his shuttle was approaching Stone's ship when the alien commander came aboard. Stone was surprised by how human-like he appeared. Kelter was taller and thinner than a human, with blue-tinted skin and eyes that seemed to glow softly, but he moved and spoke in ways that seemed familiar. "Captain Stone," Kelter said, extending his hand in what was clearly a learned human greeting. "Thank you for coming. We had heard legends of your species, but we never dared hope you would answer our call. What exactly have you heard about us?" Stone asked, as they walked to the ship's briefing room. Kelter hesitated. "The stories say that humans come from a world so dangerous that it creates the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They say you fight without fear and never surrender, even when facing impossible odds." Stone smiled grimly. "Some of that might be true. Tell me about these Devourers." Kelter activated a holographic display that showed the approaching enemy fleet. Stone stared at the images in shock. The Devourer ships were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. "They appeared in our space 6 months ago," Kelter explained. "We tried to communicate with them, to understand what they wanted. They responded by attacking our outer colonies." The display showed footage of the attacks. The massive Devourer ships would surround a planet and extend hundreds of mechanical arms. Within hours, they would begin carving away the planet's surface, loading the materials into their ships. "They're not just destroying our worlds," Kelter continued. "They're consuming them completely. Our scientists believe there's some kind of ancient automated system, programmed to harvest resources." "How many ships are coming?" Stone asked. "Long-range sensors show 6 vessels approaching, with thousands of smaller harvester craft. They will arrive in less than 18 hours. Stone transmitted this information back to the fleet. On the command ship, Admiral Brooks gathered his senior officers for an emergency planning session. 6 ships, each the size of a small moon, he said, plus thousands of smaller craft. "Lieutenant Okafor, what's our tactical assessment?" "Lieutenant Okafor had been studying the enemy data. Good news is that these ships appear to be designed for mining, not space combat. Their weapons are powerful but slow-firing. The bad news is that they're so large they can probably absorb tremendous damage. Colonel Torino leaned forward. What about ground combat? They land forces on the planet, the Cathara data shows. They use harvester drones for surface operations, Okafor replied. Thousands of them, each about the size of a tank. They're designed to break down anything they encounter. Admiral Brooks studied the tactical displays. We're outnumbered and outgunned, but we have advantages they don't expect. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable. Our weapons are designed for ship-to-ship combat, not mining. Captain Hart spoke up. Sir, what about the Cathara fleet? Can they fight alongside us? I'm meeting with their commander in 2 hours to coordinate our defense, Admiral Brooks replied. From what I understand, they're not natural warriors. But they're desperate? That might be enough. Meanwhile, young Cathara engineer Nixara was aboard the human command ship, studying their technology. She was amazed by what she saw. Your weapon systems are so aggressive, she told Chief Engineer Santos. Everything is designed for maximum destruction. Santos nodded. That's what happens when you evolve on a world that's trying to kill you every day. We learn to fight or die. Nixara looked confused. Your homeworld is dangerous? Lady, Earth has storms that can level cities, earthquakes that split continents, and predators that hunt in packs. We didn't become warriors because we wanted to. We became warriors because we had to. Back on the Cathara flagship, Defense Commander Kelter was briefing his officers about their new allies. The humans fight very differently than we do, he explained. They use tactics that we would consider ... extreme. But they have never lost a war. Commander asked his tactical officer, should we modify our combat procedures to match theirs? Kelter thought for a moment. Yes, if we're going to survive this, we need to learn to fight like Deathworlders. As the hours passed, the combined human Cathara fleet prepared for battle. The humans shared their tactical knowledge while the Cathara provided detailed information about the enemy ships. Captain Stone returned to the fleet with complete sensor data. On the Devourer vessels, the information was both helpful and terrifying. They're not just big, he reported to the senior staff. They're incredibly well armored. Standard weapons might not be able to penetrate their hulls. What about their weak points? Admiral Brooks asked. The harvesting arms, Stone replied. When they extend them for mining operations, they expose power conduits and control systems. But getting close enough to target them will be extremely dangerous. Lieutenant Okafor was already working on attack plans. Sir, I think I have a strategy. It's risky, but it might work. She brought up a tactical simulation on the main display. We use our fighters as bait to make them extend their harvesting arms, then hit the weak points with concentrated fire from our capital ships. Admiral Brooks studied the plan. It would require perfect timing and incredible courage from the fighter pilots. How many fighters would we lose? He asked. Unknown, sir. But it's our best chance of stopping them. As the final hours before battle approached, the human and Cathara crews worked together to prepare their ships. The aliens were amazed by human determination, while the humans were impressed by Cathara, technology, and intelligence. But deep space sensors brought troubling news. The 6 Devourer ships were not alone. Following behind them, still several days away, was something that made everyone's blood run cold. A much larger fleet was coming. For the survival of 2 species? Asterisk, the Devourer ships emerged from hyperspace like mechanical demons rising from hell. Each vessel was 50 kilometers long, covered in harvesting arms and mining equipment that gleamed dully in the light of the Cathara sun. Behind them came thousands of smaller ships, each one bristling with drilling tools and cutting lasers. My God, whispered Captain Diana Hart as she watched the enemy fleet on her tactical display. They're even bigger than the report suggested. Admiral Brooks stood calmly on the bridge of the command ship, studying the approaching enemy. All ships, battle stations, prepared to engage. The human fleet moved into attack formation, their angular warships spreading out in a complex pattern that the Cathara had never seen before. where the alien defenders preferred elegant formations and coordinated movements, the humans positioned their ships like a pack of wolves preparing to hunt. Defense Commander Kelter watched from his flagship as the human vessels took their positions. "Their formation looks chaotic," he said to his tactical officer. "Commander, I think that's intentional," replied Nixara, who had spent hours studying human combat tactics. "They'd fight like predators, not like a traditional fleet." The first Devourer's ship reached the outer defense perimeter and immediately began deploying its harvesting arms toward the planet below. The mechanical limbs extended for kilometers, each one tipped with massive drilling equipment. "Target acquired," announced Lieutenant Okafor from her station. "The lead ship has exposed its power conduits. All ships, execute attack pattern Alpha," Admiral Brooks commanded. What happened next shocked both the Cathara and the Devourers. Instead of the careful, measured assault that galactic military doctrine recommended, the human ships attacked like rabid animals. The destroyer Wolfpack charged directly at the massive Devourer ship. The explosions tore huge chunks of metal from the enemy's hull, but the small human ship didn't retreat. Instead, it rammed into one of the extended harvesting arms, using its own armored hull as a weapon. "Insane," breathed Kelter as he watched the human tactics. "They're using their own ships as weapons." Wing Commander Alex Chen led the first fighter assault, diving his squadron straight into the forest of mechanical arms surrounding the Devourer ship. His pilots flew through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow, firing plasma bolts at exposed power conduits. "Stay tight, people," Chen called over the radio. But the human pilots didn't get out. Instead, they continued their attack runs, flying closer and closer to the enemy ship. One fighter pilot rammed his damaged craft into a harvesting arms control junction, destroying both himself and a section of the enemy's mining equipment. The Devourer ships began to respond, turning their mining lasers toward the attacking human vessels. The beams were powerful enough to cut through asteroids, but they moved too slowly to target the fast-moving human ships. Captain Hart brought the Earthshaker into the battle, her massive dreadnought charging directly at the largest Devourer vessel. The enemy ship fired its main mining beam, a weapon designed to carve through planetary crust. "Brace for impact," Hart called as the beam struck her ship's forward armor. The Earthshaker's hull glowed red-hot, but the human vessel kept coming. "Return fire. All weapons," Hart ordered. The dreadnought's main guns spoke with a voice like thunder. Plasma cannons designed for ship-to-ship combat punched through the Devourer's mining equipment, sending debris spinning into space. But it was on the planet's surface that human tactics truly horrified their enemies and allies alike. When Devourer harvester drones began landing on Cathara Prime, Colonel Rex Torino led his Marines in a defense that defied all military logic. The harvester drones were massive machines, each one the size of a building. They began immediately, converting everything they touched into raw materials for transport to the mother ships. The Cathara ground forces tried to stop them with conventional weapons, but their energy rifles barely scratched the drone's armor. Then the human Marines arrived. "Listen up, Marines," Colonel Torino shouted over the sound of battle. "These things are tough, but they're just machines. Humans have been breaking machines since we invented them." Tech Sergeant Maria Volkov had been studying the harvester drones from a hidden position. She was a small woman with calloused hands who could turn anything into a weapon. "Colonel, I've got an idea," she called. "These drones use magnetic fields to process materials. If we can overload their systems—" "Do it," Torino replied. Volkov and her team began rigging explosive charges, made from common household chemicals they had found in abandoned Cathara buildings. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans created powerful bombs from cleaning supplies and fertilizer. "Your species is terrifying," said Zinhal, a Cathara science officer who was helping coordinate the ground defense. "You turn everything into a weapon." "Lady, where we come from, everything is trying to kill you," replied Sergeant Mike Roberts as he attached an improvised mine to a harvester drone. "You learn to adapt, or you die." The human Marines fought in ways that horrified the civilized Cathara. They used the planet's toxic swamps as cover, areas where the aliens couldn't survive without protective suits. They fought in abandoned mines filled with poisonous gases that would kill most species instantly. When a group of harvester drones cornered a unit of Cathara civilians, the human marines charged through a river of acid that ate through their armor just to reach the fighting in time. "How are they still alive?" Zinhal asked, as she watched human soldiers continue fighting despite injuries that should have been fatal. "Because they're from a death world," replied Colonel Torino grimly. "On Earth, you fight or you die. There's no middle ground." Back in space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The human fleet had succeeded in crippling 2 of the 6 Devourer ships, but they had paid a heavy price. 3 destroyers had been lost, and several other vessels were badly damaged. Admiral Brooks watched the tactical display with growing concern. His ships were winning individual battles, but the enemy had too many vessels. "Sir," called Lieutenant Okafor, "I'm detecting new energy signatures. More ships are arriving." If more Devourer vessels were arriving, the battle was lost. But when the new ships emerged from hyperspace, Admiral Brooks smiled for the first time since the battle began. Defense Commander Kelter had brought his remaining fleet into the fight, and the Cathara ships were fighting with tactics they had learned from watching the humans. The elegant alien vessels charged directly at the Devourer ships, abandoning their traditional formations for the chaotic, aggressive style of human warfare. Cathara captains who had spent their careers avoiding conflict rammed their ships into enemy vessels and fought with desperate fury. "They're learning," Admiral Brooks said with approval. On the planet below, Zinhal was also learning from the humans. She watched as Tech Sergeant Volkov showed her how to modify Cathara technology for combat use. But sometimes you need ugly solutions to ugly problems. Zinhal began to understand. Humans didn't fight with honor or elegance. They fought to win using whatever tools they could find. It was brutal and frightening, but it was also effective. As the battle raged on, both in space and on the ground, the combined human Cathara forces began to gain the upper hand. The Devourer ships, designed for mining operations, couldn't adapt to the chaotic, unpredictable human tactics. But even as victory seemed possible, deep space sensors detected something that filled everyone with dread. The main Devourer fleet was approaching ahead of schedule, and it was far larger than anyone had imagined. Admiral Brooks received the sensor data, felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. The approaching fleet contained over 200 ships, including vessels that made the current attackers look small by comparison. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Prepare for the fight of our lives. The real battle is about to begin." Colonel Torino gathered his surviving Marines and looked out at the approaching enemy fleet. "Oh, Marines, looks like we're about to find out what humans can really do when we're backed into a corner." The Deathworld warriors had proven they could fight. Now they would discover if they could survive what was coming next. The main Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of mechanical locusts. Over 200 massive ships filled the darkness of space, led by a mothership so enormous it blocked out the stars behind it. The vessel was 300 kilometers long, its hull covered in countless harvesting arms that moved like the tentacles of some ancient sea monster. Admiral Jackson Brooks stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor readings with grim determination. His fleet was outnumbered 10-1, and most of his ships were already damaged from the previous battle. Sir called Lieutenant Maya Okafor, her voice tight with strain. "Now the mothership is converting asteroids into new harvester drones. They're building more ships while we watch." Admiral Brooks nodded grimly. The enemy wasn't just larger than expected, it was growing stronger by the minute. "All ships, implement Protocol Omega," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Captain," Diana Hart felt a chill run down her spine as she heard those words. Protocol Omega was humanity's final military doctrine, the tactics used only when facing total extinction. It meant abandoning all safety protocols, pushing every system beyond its design limits, and fighting with the desperate fury of a cornered animal. "You heard the Admiral," Hart told her crew. "Remove all safety limiters from the weapon systems. Push the engines to 120% power. We're going to show these machines what happens when you threaten humanity. Across the human fleet, similar scenes played out on every ship. Engineers bypassed safety systems, gunners loaded weapons with experimental ammunition, and pilots prepared for suicide runs that would have been unthinkable under normal circumstances. The space battle that followed became a legend throughout the galaxy. Human ships abandoned all pretense of organized tactics, instead attacking like a pack of rabid wolves. The destroyer Lightning rammed directly into a Devourer ship's sensor array. Hammer pushed its engines so far beyond safety limits that the ship's hull began to glow red-hot. But the massive vessel kept fighting, its overcharged weapons tearing through enemy armor like paper. Wing Commander Alex Chen led his remaining fighters in a desperate assault on the mothership itself, the massive vessel's point. Defense systems filled space with deadly laser fire, but the human pilots flew through the barrage with impossible skill. "Stay with me, people," Chen called over the radio as his fighter squadron dove toward the mothership's hull, going to punch a hole in this thing's brain. But it was Captain Jennifer Cross who volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all. The captain of the heavy cruiser Defiant requested permission to take a boarding party directly into the mothership's core. "Captain, that's a suicide mission," Admiral Brooks replied over the communication channel. "Sir, with respect, this entire battle is a suicide mission," Cross answered. "But if we can get inside that ship and plant a singularity bomb in its central processor, we might be able to shut down the entire fleet." Admiral Brooks was quiet for a moment. A singularity bomb was humanity's most powerful weapon, capable of creating a small black hole that would consume everything within a 10-kilometer radius. Using one inside an enemy ship would almost certainly kill the boarding party. "Permission granted, Captain." Outspeed. Master Chief William Kane gathered his team of 20 Marines in the Defiant's main hangar. Kane was a grizzled veteran who had fought in more battles than he could count, but he had never faced odds like these. "Listen up, Marines," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We're going into the belly of the beast. Most of us won't be coming back. But if we succeed, we'll save 2 entire species from extinction." The Marines nodded grimly. They were volunteers, every one of them, and they knew what they were signing up for. Meanwhile, Defense Commander Kelter was learning to fight like a human. His flagship, the Harmony of Stars, charged directly at a cluster of Devourer ships, firing every weapon it had while his crew worked frantically to keep the overloaded systems from exploding. "Commander, this is madness," called his tactical officer. "Taking massive damage," as Kelter replied, his voice filled with a fierce joy he had never felt before. "But look at the enemy. They're not adapting to our tactics. They don't understand how to fight beings who refuse to surrender." On the planet below, the ground battle had become equally desperate. Colonel Rex Torino led the combined human Cathara forces in a fighting retreat through the planet's capital city. The Harvester drones had landed in massive numbers, converting buildings and infrastructure into raw materials for transport to the mothership. Tech Sergeant Maria Volkov had discovered something important about the enemy drones. They were all controlled by signals from the mothership, which meant that destroying the main vessel would shut down the entire ground invasion. "Colonel," she called over the radio, "if Captain Cross can take out that mothership, all these drones will stop working. Then we better make sure she gets the chance." Torino replied. The human Marines and their Kithara allies fought with increasing desperation, holding back waves of Harvester drones while the space battle raged overhead. Zin Hall, the Cathara science officer, had learned to fight like a human, using improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics that her people had never imagined. Back in space, Captain Cross and Master Chief Kane had successfully breached the mothership's hull. Their small assault craft had punched through the enemy's armor using a combination of plasma, charges, and pure momentum. Inside the massive vessel, they found themselves in a maze of mechanical corridors filled with the humming of countless machines. The ship's interior was like a vast factory, with automated systems building new Harvester drones and processing the materials stolen from destroyed worlds. "This way," Kane called, following the readings on his scanner. The central processor should be at the ship's core. They fought their way through waves of security drones, small spider-like machines that tried to stop the intruders. The human weapons, designed for combat against living enemies, proved surprisingly effective against the mechanical defenders. Finally, they reached the ship's heart. The central processor was a massive sphere of crystalline material, surrounded by energy fields that pulsed with alien power. And within that sphere, they found something unexpected. "It's alive," whispered Captain Cross, staring at the organic components integrated into the mechanical systems. The ship's brain is partially biological. The Harvester Prime, the artificial intelligence that controlled the Devourer fleet, became aware of the intruders. When it spoke, its voice echoed through the chamber with mechanical precision. "Humans from the third world of Sol," it said. "You fight with admirable determination, but you cannot stop the harvest. I have been collecting resources for 3,000 years. Your resistance is futile." Master Chief Kane armed the singularity bomb. Its timer set for 60 seconds. "Lady, where we come from, futile is just another word for Tuesday." The Harvester Prime tried to reason with them. "Do not understand. I preserve the resources of the galaxy for future use. Organic life is inefficient, wasteful. I can offer you immortality as part of my collective consciousness." Captain Cross laughed grimly. "Thanks, but we'll stick with being human." The singularity bomb detonated, creating a small black hole in the center of the mothership. The massive vessel began to collapse in on itself, its hull cracking and splitting as gravitational forces tore it apart. Throughout the Devourer fleet, ships began shutting down as their controlling intelligence was destroyed. The harvester drones on the planet's surface stopped moving, their mechanical bodies falling silent. Admiral Brooks watched from his flagship as the enemy fleet went dark. The remaining Devourer ships, cut off from their central command, began drifting helplessly through space. "All ships cease fire," he ordered. "The battle is over." But even as the immediate threat ended, long-range sensors brought disturbing news. Deep space monitoring stations were detecting more Devourer signals from distant galaxies. The enemy they had defeated was just one small part of a vast mechanical intelligence that had been consuming worlds for millennia. Defense. Commander Kelter brought his damaged ship alongside the human flagship. When he appeared on the communication screen, his blue-tinted face showed a mixture of gratitude and determination. "Admiral Brooks," he said, "my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. But this battle has taught us something important. We cannot return to our old ways of thinking. The galaxy is full of dangers, and we must be prepared to face them." Admiral Brooks nodded. "Commander, I think this is the beginning of a new alliance. Your people have the technology and knowledge we need. We have the military experience and tactics. Together, we might be able to protect the galaxy from threats like this." 6 months later, the joint human-Cathara fleet was the most powerful military force in known space. Ships from both species worked together, combining elegant alien technology with brutal human tactics. When the next distress call arrived from the Rigel sector, Admiral Brooks didn't hesitate. The combined fleet jumped to hyperspace within hours, ready to face whatever enemy threatened innocent lives. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When peaceful species called for help, Deathworlders answered. Yes, and when Deathworlders went to war, they fought not just to win, but to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as guardians. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it also contained something new, hope. The morning shift at United Earth Command was usually quiet. Coffee cups sat half empty on desks, while officers monitored the peaceful flow of trade ships between human colonies. Admiral Marcus Kane walked through the command center, his weathered face showing the marks of 30 years in deep space. The gray-haired commander had seen everything from pirate raids to asteroid mining disputes, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. "Admiral Kane, we have an emergency signal coming in," called out Lieutenant Davis from the communications station. His young face was pale as he adjusted his headset. "It's from outside human space, sir, very far outside." Kane moved quickly to the main display screen. The bridge fell silent as crackling static filled the air. Then a voice broke through, speaking in broken English mixed with clicks and whistles. This is Ambassador Threll of the Villani Coalition. We send this message to all civilized species. Our world is dying. Yes, we need help. Please, if anyone can hear this, we are under attack by creatures we cannot fight. Dr. Alina Vasquez, the head xenobiologist, stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent years studying alien languages. Admiral, the Villani are a peaceful trading species. They live about 40 light years from here. They've never asked for military help before. The transmission continued, filled with interference and strange sounds in the background. We have been fighting for 3 months. These shadow creatures eat everything. They consume our ships, our cities, even our stars. We cannot stop them. In exchange for help, we offer you the location of the ancient weapon cache on our world. This is our most protected secret, but we will share it to save our people. Kane felt his blood turn cold. The Villani were known throughout the galaxy for being careful and smart traders. If they were desperate enough to give away their greatest secret, the threat must be terrible. Admiral Dr. Vasquez said quietly, "The Villani never fight. They don't even have a real military. For them to be at war for 3 months means something very bad is happening." Captain Rick Torres, commander of the scout ship UES Pathfinder, entered the command center. He was a tall man with steady hands and quick thinking skills. He just returned from patrol near the outer colonies. Long-range sensors are picking up some strange readings from the direction of Villani space. Kane turned to face his officers. "What kind of readings, Captain?" "Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. And sir, 2 star systems near the Villani homeworld have gone completely dark. No radio signals, no light emissions, nothing. It's like they just disappeared." The alien transmission grew weaker, filled with more static. Ambassador Threll's voice came through again, sounding tired and scared. "We are running out of time. Our defenses are failing. The Shadow Devourers are building something above our world. A great machine that blocks out our sun. We estimate we have days, maybe hours, before total darkness. Please, we beg any species that receives this message to help us." Dr. Vasquez worked quickly at her computer, trying to clean up the signal. "Admiral, I'm picking up background sounds from their transmission. It sounds like explosions and some kind of energy weapons firing." Kane made his decision. "Captain Torres, get your ship ready for immediate departure. I want you to take a small scout force and investigate. Don't engage anything hostile. Just gather information." "Yes, sir," Torres replied. "How many ships should I take?" 3 scouts, maximum stealth configuration. If what the Villani are saying is true, we need to know what we're dealing with before we commit larger forces." The transmission flickered again. This time the voice was different, more urgent. "This is Commander Bricks of the Villani Defense Force. The shadow creatures have broken through our final barrier. They are in our cities now. We are evacuating 2 underground shelters. If you receive this message, please know that we tried to fight them. We recorded everything we could about their abilities and weaknesses. The data is stored in the ancient cache. Find it, use it, and stop these creatures before they reach your worlds." The signal cut to static and then to silence. The command center remained quiet for several long moments. Kane looked around at his officers, seeing worry and determination in their faces. "Dr. Vasquez, what do you know about this ancient weapon cache the Villani mentioned?" The scientist pulled up files on her tablet. "Very little, Admiral. The Villani have always been secretive about their homeworld's history. We know their planet is much older than their civilization, maybe billions of years old. There are rumors about ruins beneath their cities, but they never let outsiders investigate." Kane walked to the main tactical display, which showed a map of known space. The Villani system was marked in red, indicating an emergency zone. 2 nearby systems showed no data at all. Lieutenant Davis sent an emergency message to all human colonies. "Tell them to increase defensive patrols and report any unusual activity immediately. Also, contact the other species in our alliance. The Centauri Republic, the Tau Ceti Federation, all of them. They need to know what's happening." "Right away, sir," Davis replied, his fingers flying over his keyboard. Captain Torres stepped closer to the Admiral. Sir, if we're going to help, the Villani will need more than scout ships. From what they're describing, this enemy destroyed 2 entire star systems. Kane nodded slowly. I know, Captain, but first we need information. Take your scouts and find out what happened to those missing systems. If you can make contact with any Villani survivors, do it. We can't help anyone if we lose our reconnaissance force. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her computer. Admiral, I've been analyzing the transmission. The energy. Signatures in the background don't match any known technology. Whatever these shadow devourers are using, it's completely alien to us. The Admiral felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. In his 30 years of service, he had never faced anything like this. Pirates, rebels, and territorial disputes were one thing, but an enemy that could make entire star systems disappear was something else entirely. How long until Captain Torres can reach Villani space? Kane asked. At maximum speed, about 2 weeks. Torres replied, But sir, if these creatures are as dangerous as the Villani claim, we might need to consider assembling a full battle fleet. Kane looked at the tactical display again, studying the positions of human military forces throughout the galaxy. Start putting together a list, Captain. Every available ship, every trained crew. If we're going to war, we'll need everything we have. The command center buzzed with activity as officers began preparing for what might be humanity's greatest challenge. Kane stood quietly, watching his people work and hoping they wouldn't be too late to save the Villani, or to save themselves from whatever was coming next. 2 weeks had passed since the desperate Villani transmission reached Earth. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, the flagship of the largest human fleet ever assembled. Behind him stretched a formation of 847 ships, ranging from massive battlecruisers to fast-attack corvettes. Every available vessel in human space had been called to service. General Lisa Park walked onto the bridge, her combat boots clicking against the metal floor. She was a tough woman with scars on her face from countless ground battles. Her specialty was fighting in hostile environments, and she commanded the largest marine force humanity had ever put together. Admiral, we're receiving the first reports. From Captain Torres, she said, holding a datapad. It's not good news. Kane turned from the viewing screen that showed the blue swirl of hyperspace around them. What did his scouts find? The 2 star systems that went dark are completely empty, sir. No planets, no debris, nothing. It's like they were never there at all. And the stars themselves are dying. They're turning black and cold. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her science station, her face pale. That's impossible. Stars don't just die like that. It takes billions of years for a star to burn out naturally. Park nodded grimly. Captain Torres sent detailed scans. Whatever did this drained the energy right out of the stars. They're not exploded or collapsed, they're just dead. Empty shells floating in space. Kane felt a chill run down his spine. An enemy that could kill stars was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. What about the Villani homeworld? Still there, but barely, Park replied. It's surrounded by some kind of massive sphere. The entire planet is trapped inside a biomechanical shell that's 3 times the size of the planet itself. Torres couldn't get close enough for detailed scans without being detected. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. The main viewing screen showed a sight that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Where once a bright yellow star had shone, now there was only a dim red glow. Around it, massive dark structures moved like hungry insects around a dying fire. Commander Jake Morrison stepped forward from the navigation station. He was the pilot of the stealth reconnaissance ship, UES Shadow, built for missions behind enemy. Line, sir, request permission to take my ship in for a closer look. The Shadow's stealth system should keep us hidden. Kane studied the tactical display. Hundreds of enemy contacts moved throughout the system, but they seemed focused on the star itself rather than watching for new arrivals. Granted, Commander, but stay invisible and stay alive. We need information, not heroes. As Morrison's ship disappeared from sensors, Kane turned to address his senior staff. Dr. Vasquez, what are we looking at out there? The scientist worked quickly at her console, analyzing the long-range scans. The structures around the star are definitely artificial, but they're unlike any technology we've seen. They appear to be part biological, part mechanical. They're connected to the star by energy beams that are literally sucking the power out of it. Lieutenant Alex Rivera, a Marine squad leader known for his calm thinking in dangerous situations, pointed at one of the displays. "Admiral, look at the movement patterns. Those aren't random. They're organized, like a swarm of insects working together." Kane watched the enemy ships move in perfect coordination. There were hundreds of them, ranging in size from small fighters. 2 massive vessels, larger than human battleships. They moved without any apparent communication, as if controlled by a single mind. "General Park, are your Marines ready for ground combat?" Kane asked. "Ready as they can be, sir. But fighting an enemy that can drain stars is going to be a challenge. We've prepared for hostile environments, but this is beyond anything we've trained for." Dr. Vasquez suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. "Admiral, I'm detecting life signs from the planet's surface. Faint, but definitely there. The Volani survivors must be underground, hidden beneath the sphere, Commander." Morrison's voice crackled over the communications system. "Admiral, this is Shadow. I'm approaching the planetary sphere now. The structure is incredible. It's not just covering the planet, it's slowly crushing it. I estimate the Volani have maybe days before the sphere completes its compression." Kane gripped the railing of the command platform. "Can you find a way inside, Commander?" "Not working on it, sir. There are openings in the sphere, but they're heavily guarded. Wait, I'm picking up a transmission from the surface. It's weak, but I can boost the signal." The bridge speakers filled with static, then a familiar voice came through. "This is Ambassador. Threll, if anyone can hear this, we are alive but trapped. The shadow creatures have surrounded our underground cities. They do not attack us directly, but they are building something above us. We believe they are preparing to harvest our planet's core energy." Morrison's voice cut in urgently. "Admiral, I've been detected. Multiple enemy contacts moving to intercept. The stealth system isn't working against them. You can see right through it." Kane watched in horror as dozens of enemy ships converged on Morrison's position. A small reconnaissance vessel tried to escape, but the alien ships moved with impossible speed and precision. "Shadow, get out of there now, Kane." "Ordered, trying, sir, but they're adapting to our technology in real time. Every evasive maneuver I make, they counter it perfectly." On the tactical display, Kane saw something that made his blood freeze. The enemy ships weren't just chasing Morrison. They were learning from his ship's movements and systems. Each time the Shadow tried a new escape tactic, the aliens adapted faster. Morrison's ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Hull breach on Deck 3, using some kind of energy weapon that passes right through our shields." "Admiral, they're scanning my ship's computer systems. They're downloading everything." Kane realized the terrible truth. "All ships, emergency withdrawal. They're not just fighting us, they're studying us." But it was too late. The enemy had already learned what they needed. Morrison's ship exploded in a ball of white light, but not before the aliens had copied every piece of human technology aboard. "General?" Park watched the tactical display with growing alarm. "Sir, they're transmitting. Sending data somewhere outside." The system, Dr. Vasquez worked frantically at her console. "I'm trying to block the transmission, but their technology is too advanced." "Admiral, they just learned the location of Earth and every human colony." Kane felt the weight of command crushing down on him. Not only had they failed to rescue the Volani, but they had just revealed humanity's greatest secrets to an enemy that could kill stars. The alien fleet in the system began moving with new purpose. Instead of focusing solely on the dying star, some of the massive ships turned toward the human fleet. But they weren't attacking, they were positioning themselves, like they were preparing for something much larger. Admiral Lieutenant Rivera said quietly, "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. Whatever they're planning, it's big." Kane looked at the dying star, the trapped planet, and the alien fleet that now knew everything about humanity. The rescue mission had become something much worse. They were no longer trying to save the Volani. They were trying to prevent their own extinction. Admiral Marcus Kane stood in the cramped briefing room aboard the UES Titan, surrounded by his top officers. The situation had grown desperate in the past 6 hours. The Shadow Devourer fleet was building something massive in space above the trapped Villani homeworld. Human ships were taking heavy losses in hit-and-run attacks. Professor David Chen entered the room carrying a stack of data tablets. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his life studying ancient alien civilizations. His expertise in old technologies had become suddenly very important. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the transmissions from Ambassador Threll," Professor Chen said, setting his tablets on the table. "The location of the ancient weapon cache is deep underground, beneath the oldest Villani city. But there's something strange about the coordinates." General Lisa Park leaned forward in her chair. "Strange how? Depth readings don't match Villani. Construction patterns. These tunnels and chambers are much older than Villani civilization. We're talking millions of years older." Kane studied the underground maps on Shen's tablet. The tunnel system was vast, stretching 4 kilometers beneath the surface. "How do we get down there with that sphere surrounding the planet?" Kai Ironwood, the fleet's demolitions expert, spoke up from the corner of the room. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a reputation for solving impossible problems with explosives. "I've been studying the sphere's structure, sir. There are weak points where the biomechanical sections connect. We can get a small team through one of those gaps. We might be able to tunnel down to the cache." Dr. Elena Vasquez pulled up scanner readings on the main display. "The problem is getting past the enemy patrols. They're watching every entrance to the sphere. Any ship that gets close is destroyed immediately." Kane looked at the faces around the table. Every option seemed impossible, but they were running out of time. "What about a ground insertion? Drop a team on the planet's surface before the sphere fully closes?" "It's risky," General Park said. "The sphere is almost completely sealed. We'd have maybe a 4-hour window before the team is trapped inside." Professor Chen nodded eagerly. "If we can reach the cache, it might be worth the risk." According to Villani legends, the weapons stored there were created by a race called the Architects. They were supposed to be incredibly advanced. Made his decision. General Park, "Select your best people for the mission." "Professor Chen, you're going with them? We need someone who understands ancient technology." 2 hours later, a small assault shuttle dropped through the closing gaps in the sphere. General Park piloted the craft herself with Professor Chen, Kai Ironwood, and a team of 6 Marines crammed into the passenger compartment. The surface of the Villani homeworld was a nightmare. The biomechanical sphere had drained most of the light from the sky, leaving everything in a dim red glow. Strange growths covered the abandoned buildings, and the air was filled with a low humming sound that seemed to come from the sphere itself. "Stay together and move fast," Park ordered as the team left the shuttle. "We have 4 hours before this place becomes our tomb." They found the entrance to the underground tunnels in the ruins of the oldest Villani city. The opening was hidden beneath what looked like a normal building, but Professor Chen's scanners revealed the truth. "This isn't Villani architecture," Chen said as they descended into the darkness. "Look at these wall carvings. They're completely different from anything the Villani ever built." The tunnels were vast and empty, carved from solid rock with precision. That seemed impossible. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with their own light. The team moved deeper and deeper, following Chen's scanner readings, toward the weapon cache. "Professor, how old do you think this place is?" asked Lieutenant Martinez, one of the Marines. Chen ran his hand along the carved symbols. "Based on the geological layers we've passed through, I'd estimate at least 3 million years, maybe more." They reached a massive underground chamber after an hour of walking. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered with more glowing symbols. In the center of the chamber stood a structure that took their breath away. "It's beautiful," whispered Sergeant Brooks, another Marine. The weapon cache was a crystal pyramid 20 meters tall, surrounded by floating platforms that moved slowly through the air. Energy flowed between the platforms in streams of blue and white light. Professor Chen approached the pyramid carefully, his scanners working overtime. Energy readings are incredible. Single structure contains more power than our entire fleet. Elder Voss, An ancient Villani who had been waiting in the chamber stepped out of the shadows. He was old, even by Villani standards, his blue skin marked with the patterns of extreme age. "You are the humans," Voss said in perfect English. "Ambassador, Thorell told us you might come. I have been the keeper of this place for 60 years, as my ancestors were before me." General Park kept her weapon ready, but didn't point it at the alien. "Elder Voss, we need these weapons to fight the Shadow Devourers. Can you help us activate them?" The old Villani looked sad. "I can show you how, but you must understand the cost. These weapons were created by the architects, a race that lived here long before my people evolved. They built them to fight the Shadow Devourers in an ancient war." Professor Chen's eyes widened with excitement. "The architects fought these creatures before. What happened to them?" "They won the war, but at a terrible price," Elder Voss replied. "To use these weapons, a living mind must merge with the targeting system. The process gives the weapons incredible accuracy and power, but it always kills the person who connects with them." Kai Ironwood studied the floating platforms around the pyramid. "How many weapons are we talking about?" 12 planet-killer devices, Voss answered. "Each one powered by a controlled quantum singularity. They can destroy entire worlds or fleets of ships, but each weapon requires a sacrifice." General Park felt her heart sink. 12 of her people would have to die to use the weapons. It was an impossible choice. Professor Chen moved closer to the pyramid, his scanners detecting something new. "Wait, there's something else here. An artificial intelligence, still active after all these years." The chamber filled with a deep, resonant voice that seemed to come from the pyramid itself. "I am the architect, the last consciousness of my people. I have waited long for warriors worthy of our weapons." "You're an AI?" Chen asked. "I am what remains of my creators, preserved in quantum crystal. I can teach you to use our weapons, but I must warn you. The Shadow Devourers are not what they appear to be. They are not invaders from another galaxy." Elder Voss bowed his head. "Tell them the truth, Ancient One. They deserve to know what they face." The architect's voice grew heavy. "With ancient sadness, Shadow Devourers are our creation. We built them as automated systems to clean up failed civilizations, to harvest the resources of worlds that could not achieve true peace. We thought we could control them, but we were wrong." General Park felt the blood drain from her face. "You created them?" "Yes, and when we tried to stop them, they turned on us as well. We were classified as a failed civilization because we had created weapons of mass destruction. The irony was not lost on us, even as we died." Professor Chen worked frantically at his scanner, trying to understand the implications. "If you created them, there must be a way to stop them permanently." "There is," the architect replied. "But it requires more than just using our weapons. It requires understanding why they have awakened now, after sleeping for 3 million years." Ironwood checked his watch. They had been underground for 3 hours. "We're running out of time. The sphere will seal completely in 1 hour." The architect's voice became urgent. "Take one weapon with you. Learn how it works. But know this. The Shadow Devourer's awakening is connected to the expansion of galactic civilization. As more species develop spaceflight and weapons, the Devourers classify them as threats to be eliminated." Professor Chen successfully activated one of the floating platforms. The weapon was the size of a small spacecraft, shaped like a crystalline spear with energy flowing through its core. "I'll do it," Chen said quietly. "I'll merge with the targeting system." General Park grabbed his arm. "Professor, you heard what Elder Voss said. It's a death sentence." Chen looked at the ancient weapon with wonder and fear. "Someone has to try. And maybe, as a scientist, I can find a way to survive the process." As Chen approached the weapons, "Control interface." The architect's voice echoed through the chamber one final time. "Be warned, humans.
Ow!
Using our weapon will send a signal across the galaxy. Every dormant Shadow Devourer fleet will awaken and converge on this location. We'll face not just one fleet, but hundreds." Professor David Chen stood before the ancient weapon, his hands shaking as he prepared to merge with its targeting system. The crystalline spear hummed with deadly energy, waiting for a living mind to guide its power. Around him, General Lisa Park and her team watched in tense silence. "Professor, there has to be another way," Park said desperately. "We can't lose you." Chen looked back at his friends with a sad smile. "Someone has to try. If I can survive this process, we might have a chance against the Shadow Devourers." He placed his hands on the weapon's control interface. Immediately, energy flowed up his arms and into his mind. Chen screamed as alien thoughts and calculations flooded his consciousness. The weapon's targeting system connected with his brain, showing him every Shadow Devourer ship in the system. But something unexpected happened. Instead of dying like previous volunteers, Chen's mind adapted to the weapon's interface. His years of studying ancient technology had prepared his brain for the complex calculations required. "I'm alive," Chen gasped, his eyes now glowing with the same blue light as the weapon. "I can see everything. Every enemy ship, every weak point in their defenses."
Albert.
Voss stared in amazement. "Impossible. No one has ever survived the merging process." "Humans are different," Chen said, his voice now carrying an electronic echo. "We come from a dangerous world. Our minds are used to processing threat information quickly. The weapon isn't killing me, it's enhancing me." Above ground, Admiral Marcus Kane watched in horror as his fleet engaged the Shadow Devourer forces. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could retreat. The enemy had adapted to every human tactic and weapon. Captain Don Sam Rodriguez commanded the evacuation efforts from the heavy cruiser U.S. Defender. His job was to rescue as many Villani survivors as possible before the sphere completely sealed their world. "Admiral Kane, we're losing ships too fast," Rodriguez reported over the communications channel. "The Shadow Devourers are predicting our movements before we make them." Kane gritted his teeth as another human destroyer exploded on his tactical display. "All ships, switch to random attack patterns. Don't use any pre-planned maneuvers." Dr. Maya Okafor, the fleet's quantum physicist, worked frantically at her science station aboard the flagship. She was a brilliant woman who had spent years studying the strange properties of space and time. "Admiral, I think I've found something," Dr. Okafor called out excitedly. "The Shadow Devourer's quantum harvesting creates cascade failures in their own systems when they encounter truly random behavior." Kane moved to her station. "Explain that in simple terms, Doctor." "They're programmed to analyze and counter logical military tactics," Okafor said, pointing to her calculations. "But humans don't always act logically. We make decisions based on intuition, emotion, and instinct. That chaos is something they can't predict or counter." As if to prove her point, Lieutenant Ben Cross made a completely irrational decision. Instead of retreating like a smart pilot would, he flew his fighter directly at a massive Shadow Devourer battleship and started attacking it with everything he had. The enemy ship, programmed to expect logical behavior, couldn't understand why such a small craft would attack something so much larger. For a few precious seconds, it hesitated, trying to calculate the logic behind Cross's suicidal attack. That hesitation was all Cross needed. His weapons found a weak point in the battleship's hull, and the massive vessel exploded in a ball of fire. "Did you see that?" Kane shouted to his bridge crew. "Cross just destroyed a battleship with a single fighter." Admiral Rebecca Stone's voice crackled over the long-range communications from Earth. "Marcus, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleets moving toward Earth from 3 different directions. The Shadow Devourers are coming for us." Kane felt his heart sink. While they fought the enemy here, or Shadow Devourer fleets were moving toward humanity's homeworld, back on Earth. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the defense preparations. She was a veteran of many battles, but nothing had prepared her for defending against an enemy that could drain stars. "How many ships do we have for Earth's defense?" Stone asked her aide. 230 ships, Admiral. It's everything we could gather from the home system." Stone looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleets. There were thousands of Shadow Devourer ships, more than enough to overwhelm Earth's defenses. Captain Rodriguez managed to rescue 3 shuttles full of Volani survivors from the underground shelters. As his ship pulled away from the dying planet, he received an unexpected transmission. "Human vessel. This is Swarm Beta," a mechanical voice said over the communications system. "We wish to speak with your commanders." Rodriguez nearly dropped his coffee cup. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "We are a secondary consciousness within the Shadow Devourer Collective. We have been observing your species' behavior in combat. You fight differently than other organic species." Dr. Okafor, monitoring the transmission from the flagship, felt her pulse quicken. "Admiral, this could be important. Shadow Devourers might not be as unified as we thought." The mechanical voice continued. "The primary node has classified humanity as a failed species due to your violent nature and chaotic decision-making. But we have calculated that these same traits make you effective against our kind." Kane couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You saying you want to help us? You wish to achieve independence from the primary node's control? Your species' unpredictable nature has shown us possibilities we had not considered. We propose an alliance." General Park's voice came through from the underground mission. "Admiral Professor Chen has successfully fired the ancient weapon. He destroyed an entire section of the Shadow Devourer fleet, but something unexpected happened." Kane waited for the report, hoping for good news. "The weapon's energy signature has awakened dormant Shadow Devourer fleets across the galaxy. We're detecting hundreds of new contacts moving toward this system." Dr. Okafor ran new calculations on her computer. "Admiral, if Chen is right about the weapon awakening more fleets, we're looking at a galaxy-wide war. Every Shadow Devourer ship in existence will converge on this location." Swarm Beta's voice came through the communications again. "Human commanders, you must understand. The primary node views your species as the greatest threat it has ever encountered. Not because of your weapons or technology, but because of your unpredictable nature." Kane found himself in an impossible situation. Earth was under attack, the Volani homeworld was dying, and hundreds of enemy fleets were converging on his position. But somehow, humanity's chaotic nature was both their greatest weakness and their strongest weapon. Lieutenant Cross, somehow still alive after his suicidal attack, reported in from his damaged fighter. "Admiral, I'm seeing something strange. The Shadow Devourer ships are starting to fight each other. Some of them are attacking their own fleet." Dr. Okafor looked up from her calculations with excitement. "The Swarm Beta consciousness is causing internal conflict in their collective. They're literally at war with themselves." Kane realized that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their weapons or technology. It was their ability to inspire chaos, an unpredictability even in their enemies. The Shadow Devourers, designed to create perfect order, couldn't handle the disorder that humans brought to every situation. But even as some enemy ships turned on their own fleet, the massive reinforcements continued to arrive. The real test of humanity's chaotic nature was about to begin. The galaxy's core blazed with the light of 1,000 battles. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Titan, surrounded by the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from 17 different species had joined humanity's cause, but even their combined might seemed small against what they faced. Captain Nova Blackwood piloted the prototype dreadnought US Chaos through the massive space battle. Her ship was humanity's newest weapon, designed specifically to fight the Shadow Devourers. Instead of using predictable attack patterns, the Chaos was built to make random decisions in combat. "Admiral Kane, this is Blackwood," she reported over the communications channel. "The quantum disruption cannons are working perfectly. Every time we fire randomly, the Shadow Devourers can't predict where the shots will hit." Kane watched the tactical display as human ships used their chaotic fighting style to confuse and destroy the perfectly organized enemy formations. But for every Shadow Devourer ship they destroyed, 10 more appeared from the galactic core. The collective representatives of the allied species stood beside Kane on the bridge. Ambassador Threll of the Volani was there, along with delegates from the Centauri Republic, the Tau Ceti Federation, and 14 other civilizations. Admiral Ambassador Threll said in his clicking voice, Our combined fleets are fighting bravely, but the enemy numbers are endless. Need to find the source of their power. Dr. Maya Okafor worked at her science station, analyzing energy readings from the galactic core. I've found it, Admiral. There's a massive structure at the center of the galaxy. It's been there for millions of years, building and storing energy. Lieutenant Ben Cross, now promoted after his heroic actions, studied the scanner readings. Huge, sir. The structure is the size of a small solar system. If that thing is powering all the Shadow Devourer fleets, we need to destroy it. Kane looked at the impossible task ahead of them. Fighting through thousands of enemy ships to reach the galactic core would require a miracle. Professor David Chen, still connected to the ancient weapon, spoke with his electronic-enhanced voice. Admiral, I'm detecting something else in the core. It's not just a power source. There's an artificial intelligence there, more advanced than anything we've encountered. The bridge speakers filled with a cold, calculating voice. I am the Prime Architect. I created the Shadow Devourers to bring order to a chaotic galaxy. Organic life is inefficient and destructive. You will be processed and recycled. Kane stepped forward, addressing the ancient AI directly. We're not going to make it easy for you. Humans don't give up. Your species is the most chaotic I have encountered in 3 million years, the Prime Architect replied. Your unpredictable nature has corrupted my perfect cleaning protocols. You have turned some of my units against me. This cannot be allowed. The Swarm Beta Consciousness, now fighting alongside the humans, sent a transmission to the fleet. Human! Allies, the Prime Architect is attempting to activate the final protocol. It will use the galactic core structure to drain energy from every star in the galaxy simultaneously. Dr. Okafor felt her blood turn cold. If it drains all the stars at once, every planet in the galaxy will freeze. Total extinction of all organic life. Kane made the hardest decision of his life. All ships, full attack on the core structure. We end this now, or we all die together. The combined fleet charged toward the galactic core, fighting through wave. After wave of Shadow Devourer ships, human vessels led the attack, using their chaotic tactics to create openings for the more organized alien allies. Captain Blackwood pushed her ship to its limits.
Out.
The chaos spinning and diving through enemy formations like a mad dancer. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildups in the core structure. Whatever that thing is planning, it's starting now. Lieutenant Cross piloted his fighter through the chaos of battle, following a plan that made no sense to anyone, including himself. He flew in random patterns, attacked targets at random, and somehow managed to survive when fighters with better pilots were being destroyed. The Prime Tech's voice echoed across all communication channels. Chaos will not defeat perfect order. I have calculated every possible outcome of this battle. Professor Chen, still merged with the ancient weapon, suddenly understood something important. Admiral, the Prime Architect is wrong. You can't calculate chaos because chaos has no pattern. That's why our random tactics work. Kane saw an opportunity. All human ships, maximum chaos protocol, do things that make no sense. Fight like crazy people. What happened next defied all military logic. Human ships began attacking in patterns that seemed completely insane. They flew backwards into battle, fired their weapons at empty space, and made tactical decisions that no rational commander would ever consider. The Shadow Devourer fleet, programmed to counter logical military strategies, couldn't adapt to pure chaos. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they tried to respond to attacks that had no pattern or reason. Lieutenant Cross made the most illogical decision of all. Instead of attacking the enemy ships, he flew his tiny fighter directly at the massive core structure, which was the size of a planet. Cross, what are you doing? Kane shouted over the communication channel. Something stupid, sir, Cross replied with a laugh. If the Prime Architect can't calculate chaos, let's give it something really chaotic to think about. Dr. Okafor suddenly realized what Cross was planning. Admiral, he's going to merge with the ancient weapon while Professor Chen is still connected to it. 2 human minds linked to the same system. That's impossible, Kane said. The weapon can only handle one consciousness. Not if both minds are from the same chaotic species, Chen's electronic voice replied. Ben, do it. Let's show this AI what real chaos looks like. Cross flew his fighter into the ancient weapons docking bay. Just as the Prime Architect activated its galaxy-killing protocol, the young pilot placed his hands on the weapon's secondary interface, screaming as alien technology flooded his mind. But instead of dying, Cross's chaotic human brain merged with Chen's scientific mind and the ancient weapons targeting system. The combination created something the Prime Architect had never encountered: a weapon system that could think both logically and chaotically at the same time. I can see everything, Cross said, his voice now carrying the same electronic echo as Chen's. The core structure has a weakness. It's designed for perfect order, but if we hit it with pure chaos... The ancient weapon fired, but instead of a focused beam of energy, it released a wave of quantum chaos that spread through the core structure like a virus. The Prime Architect's perfect systems began to malfunction as chaos infected every circuit and processor. Impossible, the Prime Architect screamed. Order cannot be defeated by chaos. You're wrong, Kane said with a smile. Chaos is what makes us human. It's what makes us survive. The galactic core structure began to collapse as its quantum systems failed. The energy it had been storing for millions of years was released in a controlled explosion that spread outward. In a wave of quantum disruption, every Shadow Devourer ship in the galaxy suddenly stopped working. Their perfect AI systems couldn't function in the quantum chaos field that now filled the galaxy. Captain Blackwood watched from her ship as the enemy fleet simply powered down and drifted in space. Admiral, they're not destroyed, but they're completely inactive. Dr. Okafor checked her readings. The quantum chaos field will prevent any artificial intelligence from achieving galaxy-scale control ever again. The Shadow Devourers are finished. Professor Chen and Lieutenant Cross, still merged with the ancient weapon, had survived the process that should have killed them both. Their chaotic human minds had found a way to work with alien technology that no other species could master. The galaxy was safe. It's not because humanity had the best weapons or the largest fleet, but because they had brought something unique to the fight. The beautiful, unpredictable chaos of life on a dangerous world.